Hey, good morning, Teach Better family. I'm so excited to be with you, and I have the wonderful and fantastic Brad Hughes with me. And we are, I guess we're last. So they saved the best for last. Is that right, Brad?
That's the story they're telling us anyway, Joshua. I think that those that are tuning in and joining us will have to be the decision makers in the end about whether we're really adding the best for last quality. But we're building on two great presentations this week already from our midsummer series, and I'm really excited and passionate about digging into this with you. You know, two of us school leaders with with a passion for creating communities and cultures where people look forward to coming and leave feeling glad that they came. So this is right up our alley.
Definitely. And I can't wait for this conversation. If you missed the last two, obviously, Chad and Jeff had a fantastic conversation 2 mornings ago on professional development and strategic planning. Then Katie and Ray rocked it out of the park yesterday on practices for classroom walkthroughs. Very powerful. If you haven't checked those out yet, make sure after this conversation, head over Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn. We're everywhere, right? So I want to know what you're doing this morning. What is your favorite morning routine? I want you to throw that in the comments. So, good morning, everyone. We're going to be back in about 17 seconds to go over this wonderful topic of retaining and attracting your staff. All right, welcome back. Again, we are live on so many different social media outlets, and I want to know, Mr. Brad Hughes, what is your favorite morning routine as folks start dropping those in the comments?
It's a cup of coffee. It's a cup of coffee, and it's a cup of coffee at home. And I've gotten into a tradition, Josh, at my school sites to provide a coffee urn. And one of my opening routines when I arrive at the school, no matter what my head is telling me I need to do first, then next, and finally, it's to get to that staff room, that faculty lounge, and get that coffee on. Because then the aroma, that welcoming aroma of coffee, is greeting every single educator as they walk in. And it's a great way for me to reset both mentally and emotionally to get ready for my busy day.
Oh, it's
What's coming up
lovely.
for you as far as your morning routines?
Well, as I've stated a couple times on live, we moved to Colorado, I don't know, what, a month ago, not too long ago. And so my two boys, I, in our family, we have very early risers or we have folks that are night owls. Most of the family are night owls, but my two boys, they get up between 5:30 and 6 every morning, regardless of what time they go to bed. And so what we've been doing is going on morning walks. So getting
Oh,
out, and now the vantage point is just gorgeous because we've got the mountains here, and so that's been really fun. We've done that for the last like week now, and I think I want to continue that tradition with them. And then when I get home, of course, I got to grab my coffee.
Julie is joining us, and she's running right now. Good morning to Julie, Joe, Mark, Brienne, and welcome to all of you wherever you're joining us from. Drop us a line in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you are, what's motivating you this morning. Maybe what your favorite morning wake up might be. And if you're visiting us on Facebook, make sure that you grant StreamYard permission to share your deets with us so we can recognize you and call you out by name.
Well, Brad, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And I have the honor and privilege of being with you every Tuesday morning for the Admin Mastermind. And we're going to talk more about that, but it's every Tuesday morning. And we actually, a couple months ago, we had this conversation on retaining and attracting staff. It was so powerful to hear from administrators and leaders all over this country, actually multiple countries. Obviously, you're coming from Canada too. And so I want to dive into this topic with you this morning on, first off, retaining teachers. This is a really important topic. I know for administrators, you're going through this right now. This is hiring season. This is the time to get folks into your building, but then it's also a time for teachers to decide, am I staying in my current position? Am I going to move on to a different campus, different district, or maybe going for that promotion? So for the teachers that are in your building now, what do you think is the most important factor that contributes to teacher retention?
I think it's a sense of purpose and a sense of recognition and support in the community. I mean, when we take a look at building strong teams, we want to both attract and retain folks that are going to come alongside us as school leaders and as colleagues to get the job done in the best way that we can, knowing that we're trying to improve the lives of kids. We're trying to improve their learning lives. We're trying to improve their social and emotional lives. And so a sense of purpose, Josh, a sense of I belong, I matter. And that's a constant cycle that the school leader needs to keep in mind, is to be always aware of and taking opportunities to reflect back the essential difference that each individual faculty member makes to the community. Because let's face it, we're busy educators. We've got those blinders on. We've got to make sure we get this done and that done, and first, then next, finally. And we just need sometimes to pause with intention with our faculty members, with our colleagues, and say, here's the difference that you made by showing up for work today. Here's the difference you made for this individual child that I saw. Here's an anecdote about what I heard about you in the faculty lounge. And also knowing who our colleagues are, not just for the important contributions they make as educators, but for the rich and complex individuals they are. I mean, if you take a look at each of us, we're not only educators, we're neighbors, we're family members, we're friends, we're partners, we're community leaders, we're athletes, we're striving to open new businesses, we're striving to keep ourselves motivated, and we're striving to enrich our own lives. And so the more we school leaders know about what makes our colleagues and reports tick inside and outside of the school, it just really builds up that fellow feeling, that sense of connection that's so essential to, keeping staff excited about coming to our buildings.
Well, I want to say too, for those who, good morning, Dave. For those who are jumping in the comments, if there are tactics and things that you're doing on your campus to retain staff or bring in that new hire as we're going along in the next 60 minutes here or so, make sure that you're sharing that with everybody really on the comment section, wherever you are watching. And I want to keep going on this topic of retaining teachers, Brad. So, for yourself, what do you think school leaders can do to create a more supportive and welcoming environment to build those relationships with your staff? Because like you said, school leaders, school teachers are extremely busy. And as the school year goes on, it's pretty stressful. So what are you doing to create a more supportive and welcoming environment?
I have the privilege, Josh, of joining a brand new elementary school community in September, and had the opportunity to visit the school site and to meet the staff members I'll be working with a short time ago. And I'm beginning by asking them, hey, what's up? What do you need? How can I help? Just a little bit about myself as a school leader, so they know sort of my ins and outs and what makes me tick both inside and outside the school building. But absolutely, it's about our service and our ability to lead comes from the energy and the interest and the motivation that our staff members and faculty members bring to that equation. So I started with a staff survey. I started with an invitation for them to be as candid and as real with me about the strengths and the areas of need and areas of growth. Let me know about the traditions that the school celebrates. Let me know about your particular passion for education for kids. And the more we know about those that we work with and walk with, and the more we leverage their expertise, then we're creating school goals that are not, they don't belong to the school leader. They belong to everyone in the school community. And so that allows us as school leaders, when we know the people and we know the priorities, we can develop shared priorities that allow all of us to take important steps together. And when it comes to that accountability piece, Josh, as well, then we can lovingly hold each and every individual of the community to high standards of professionalism, of behavior, of commitment. And we can also recognize that there are going to be missteps and setbacks as well. So it all begins with that foundation of relationships and respect for the expertise of those around us. And I'm wondering what's coming up for you in terms of those, as a school leader yourself, how do you get things started either with a new school community or ensuring that, the voice of the people that you're working with is being heard?
Yeah. So as a school leader, especially when I was new in a building, I think there was a lot of mistrust because they didn't know who I was, what I believed in, what my values, what was I like as a leader. And so I built a spreadsheet. I know spreadsheets is kind of a funny thing for a leader because we use it so often, but I had it for not only walkthroughs, for instruction, but then also relationship walkthroughs. So my intention was not only to get in to see what they were doing inside the classroom for their instruction, but then who are they as a person, to learn about them and to come in with no objective other than to learn about who they were, what's going on in their life, what's stressing them out. So yeah, spreadsheets, I know. It's always funny to throw that out, but it gave me accountability and something to track, because if I don't have that in front of me, I'm very visual, then it goes to the wayside. So it just gave me an opportunity to say, okay, this is me tracking when was the last time that I went and spent just 2 minutes with them, asking how their day was. Nothing too grand, right? I'm not spending 30 minutes, an hour, because as administrators, as we know, it's too busy, too chaotic. So, but if I could, do some relationship walks and hit, 5 teachers a day, then I could get through my staff pretty quickly, and making those touch points, because it's too easy to get stuck behind a computer with emails, or get stuck in the front office with parents and students and teachers just bombarding you at your door with various problems. So it was my chance to get out. I always love those times. I always wish that I did it more. But for myself, the first thing that was coming was to do those relationship walks.
I love that concept of relationship walks, Josh, because let's face it, depending on what administrators or what cultural practices our colleagues have inherited or remember, it could be that any visit from a principal is a gotcha visit. It's a supervisory visit. It's a visit where the school leader is seeking what's not working and is maybe quick or eager to to let colleagues know what's not working, do this, not that. Instead, I think this is something that I practice, and I want to promote it to all school leaders, is to just to get clear with staff that when you visit your school, you're going there with a supportive lens, because we all want to help each other teach better. We want to all help each other serve our kids better. And so those relationship walks, if you are making clear that your purpose to visit is to support the work of the classroom and the learning in the classroom and the emotional health and well-being in the classroom, you may be able to disrupt some of the anticipation, the negative anticipation that our colleagues and reports may have about administrator visit. And then the key is you say it, you have to make your intention clear, and then you have to prove it. You have to show up with love, positive intention, positive support, and then that circle back conversation. Here are 2 great things that I noticed, and there's your opportunity, Josh, to let your staff members know how they're making a positive contribution that day for that kid. Here's what I noticed. And I often ask, I'm wondering about if there's something I'm curious about. Like, I want to make sure that my position is curiosity. I noticed, I'm wondering about, can I support you with that? Are you digging deeper into this? Is this a new practice for you? How's that working for you? Being someone who is curious and positioning yourself as someone who wants to learn along with colleagues for the betterment of kids. That relational walkthrough is something that's a huge takeaway for me right now.
Be curious, not judgmental, like Ted Lasso says. So
100%.
I love it. So, Brad, I want you to expand, if you will. So you talked about, finding the voice of your teachers, or listening and finding that opportunity. You started with, as a new leader on a campus, with a survey and trying to get folks to, provide feedback. I'm just curious if there's other strategies throughout the year that you use to try to make sure that the teachers have a voice, or your staff to be able to provide feedback, not just at the beginning of the year, but at other times throughout the school year.
Josh, I think we can absolutely use faculty meetings for that purpose. Allison Apsey's new book is devoted to creating staff meetings that people look forward to coming to. And it's devoting time to making sure that it's not a sit and get session, which drives people nuts. It's a collaborative session where we are taking intentional steps as a team to move forward on school goals, but also to celebrate what makes us human, and to celebrate what is making us excited and joyful about being an educator in that particular space. So faculty meetings for sure, but I want to come back just briefly and touch on those relational walks. I find there are huge opportunities there in those personal interactions, whether it's before school as you're welcoming faculty into the building, or maybe it's we talked about that cup of coffee. It's finding a way to spend a few minutes in the faculty lounge to contribute, but also to listen to what the vibe is on that day, or paying attention to the questions that come up. I mean, we want to make sure that we're positioning ourselves as school leaders as folks that are welcoming questions, and we're also being mindful that if the same 2 or 3 questions are coming up, that's an opportunity for us to communicate a little bit differently, a little bit better. So again, I think it all boils down to those routines, and establishing routines where relationships are growing through the time that we're spending together with our colleagues. So it can be systematized, like faculty meetings. It could be revisiting an initial survey. If I'm able to graph any of the data or collect any of the data that's not personal data, but data related to school goals, that can be incorporated into our school planning or school improvement processes, and then we can do touch points at each quarter or certainly midway through the year. How are we doing? How do we know? And how do we continue to get there together? And wondering what's coming up for you about keeping that conversation going after that initial spark of excitement when you're coming together. How do you sustain that both as a leader and as a team member growing along with your faculty?
Yeah, I was thinking, if we're collecting data, if we're acting with the surveys and getting that as a school leader, you better do something with that information. Yeah, I know teachers get really frustrated. Like you talked about staff meetings, right? The sit and the get, and oh, do we have to do this again? But they also get frustrated if they share their voice and then it never gets brought up again. Nothing gets done with the input that they provided. That's really extremely frustrating and feels like a waste of time. So as a school leader, if you're gathering information, if it's through a survey, if it's through another form of a meeting, make sure that you're talking through what is being addressed, how you're using that data, how you're using that feedback, so that the staff knows that you're taking it and you find value in it, right? We're not just doing it to go through the motions and checking a box as some of us do, but we're actually taking that information and creating the action plan with that in mind. So that was what came to mind. I always love running my meetings differently every single time and trying to gain collaboration and feedback from my staff. And so, I would find unique ways to group people and get them to rotate through stations and whatnot, because I think we get stagnant and we do the same thing over and over again of, whole group sit down, listen to the administrator, in that staff meeting. And I hated that as a teacher. So why would I do that as an administrator? So I like to mix it up. I like to break them up into different groups and send them all over in different places. Sometimes we do it outside. Sometimes I would group them and have them walk together to provide feedback, so they were active and moving, because they were tired, especially if it was at the very beginning of the morning or after school, lots going on. They were stressed. So to try and find different ways to mix it up, provide a lot of excitement too for them to be able to share, but then also in different ways.
Something I'm trying, Josh, as far as preparing my new staff members, the new staff members in our community for, for getting our school year off to a great start and sustaining that interest is sharing what I'm reading. So,
Yep.
I am reading, Lead with Collaboration by Allison Apsey. I'm also reading Onward by Elena Aguilar. And I really want to put what I'm reading out there, along with an invitation that if that resonates with you, and if you're an educator for whom professional reading is part of your summer, it's part of what, if it's part of what fills your cup over the summer holidays, I really want to partner with my staff members, with our staff members, to make those things a reality. I want to partner to make sure that the time we spend together is purposeful, inspiring, and that you leave feeling, yeah, that was valuable time. And I'm now empowered with both information and direction to make even more of a difference for kids. And I think we truly have to believe in our heart of hearts, Josh, that's why every educator walks into our buildings, and that's what keeps them coming back. And then when we find staff members who may be feeling dispirited, maybe feeling unheard, or maybe even unwelcome, what can we do to partner with them to help them to rediscover their important place in that community? It's the same with Onward by Elena Aguilar. I mean, shifting the conversation from, self-care for educators, hey, look after yourself, do these tips, to, community care, looking out for one another, and just making visible what I'm thinking and inviting feedback on that, but also inviting partnership. That's something that I hope that these two foundational things is purposeful staff meeting time and purposeful communication around protecting and growing our resilience can be something that gets us off on a foundational right foot, and then something that we can sustain as well.
I love it. All right. So for those who are jumping in, because I see some more folks jumped in. So we're talking about retaining and attracting new and current staff. And so we're talking about retaining teachers right now. Brad, I want to keep going with what you were just talking about. And you stated that folks are going through a lot of stress.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about the mental health component. So what can school leaders do to address the challenges that the teachers are going through, not only on the campus, but then also in their own personal lives?
I think the first step, Josh, first important step is just to name that. I think that as we review our school years, and certainly our school years since the the spring of 2020, we can see that there are fundamental shifts in what schools and what educators are being called to do to respond to pervasive community stress and distress, and just the displacement, the emotional, the physical, the well-being displacement that kids and families and we as educators have experienced having survived a pandemic. So we just have to name the fact that we are living and working and collaborating in a different time with different needs that we may not know or anticipate. And often, I mean, if you reflect on maybe a sense of greater dysregulation, greater upset on part of individuals or students or families, that kind of emotional contagion can really make your community feel really, really off kilter, and feel that you continue to walk day in and day out into a minefield of distress that part of our core purpose is to continue to educate and to help kids and kids learn better as well. So I guess just to sum up, first is to name it, and to name our commitment to companioning each other through the stress and distress better and better. I think that purposeful time, with your learning walks and your relationship walks, purposeful time and being open and vulnerable with the stresses and distresses that you as an individual, as a school leader, may be experiencing. And again, bringing that lens of curiosity, Josh, to, I wonder how that's coming up for you. When you're aware of the stresses in your school environment and you can name them, then you and your faculty members can, we can make a shift from wishing that these distressing things weren't happening to wondering why they might be occurring and why now. And then finally, we can shift our lens to, let's be committed together to being stress detectives in this endeavor. Let's figure out what stresses and distresses we can identify and reduce, and let's accept the ones that we can't. But above all, as adults, we have to companion each other through the distress in order that we might have the resources to share our calm with kids and families who desperately need it. Wellness has to be more than about receiving a newsletter, reminding ourselves of what we should be doing differently or better. Let's face it, for busy educators, when we receive wellness newsletters, depending on our mindset, it could be something that we simply, one more thing that we have to make time for, one more thing that we're not doing well yet. Instead, as school leaders, we can shift the conversation to how can we better look after one another. What's coming up for you there?
Well, I was just thinking the newsletter with the mental health strategies. We provide a lot, but we don't allow the time for them to actually practice the strategies that we put forth in those staff meetings or in those newsletters. And so I think, yes, naming, like you were saying, but also having the conversation about mental health. I think there's a stigma still about mental health and the fact that it's a weakness. And that's just not the case. I can think of a teacher that was really struggling, came into the office, let us know some of the mental health concerns that were going on in their lives. And of course, we try to be as supportive as possible and put in things in place, because we knew it wasn't going to last forever. But we did know that it was a valley for this person. And so we tried to provide as much accommodations as possible for them to be successful. And it was unfortunate that the team members that this person was on thought, oh, they're slacking off, they're not a very good teacher, they need to get fired. I mean, some of the comments were vicious, and it's unfortunate that that was the mindset of our campus. But I think it's not just, in that one space. I think over the country, I think mental health is seen as something that you just have to push through, put on a smile, and move forward without actually addressing it and really naming it, like you said. So as a leader, to be able to have that conversation with the staff and letting them know that we're here to support, and these are not empty words, that we're truly there for you, I think goes a long way. And then letting them know where your viewpoint of mental health is, because it's super important to make sure that you're balancing between work and having those boundaries. And I think we've done a really good job of talking about that in the admin mastermind. And I want to go next to that piece for you, Brad, because I know this is something that's important in your own life. But for our school leaders, what can they do for the teachers to really make sure that they have some balance between work and what's important with, the other personal things of their lives?
One is maybe do an audit of the things that are making it difficult for teachers and educators to find that balance, and just asking that question: what would it take? What changes could we make here in our school community? It could be around setting shared limits around professional communication outside of the school day. It could be giving educators permission to set those same limits with the families and caregivers that they serve. It could be something as simple as adding an email or an auto reply acknowledging that you respond to emails or to messages between certain times of the day. And I think as school leaders, we need to walk that talk. We need to both embrace and protect our own time, both inside and outside of school. And by doing so, we're also giving permission to our colleagues and reports that they have the capacity to do the same thing. As well as sort of as a middle manager, it's essential for you to be feeding up information about your campus's academic health, but also your campus's social and emotional health to your supervisory officers. And I think it's also important that if supervisory officers have the opportunity to know your school community intimately, it needs to be about more than test scores and academic ratings and standardized tests. It has to be about the health of the educators, and the health of kids is intimately tied to the health of all the significant adults in their life. That comes from Dr. Stuart Schenker. And we know that when we are not at our best, we find it hard to give our best. And then we have the risk as educators of putting ourselves down. And again, that can just serve to reinforce that we're falling short. So, your community health, the health of your faculty, and the health of, the physical health around your building needs to be an ongoing conversation in addition to the important academic agenda.
Yeah, I think it's so important that, like you said, Brad, is we are modeling what we expect from our teachers. If we don't have boundaries with our email, if we don't have boundaries of spending 15 to 16 hours on the campus, what we're saying without saying it with our words, but through our actions, is that they're not doing enough. They need to do more, and they need to kill themselves in a job that's already stressful, it's already hard, already difficult. And so as school leaders, we need to make sure that we are putting things in place and modeling, hey, if I'm leaving on a Friday at 4 p.m. and school is done at 3:30, I would get on the announcements and just be like, everyone's leaving right now. Like, I don't care what you're doing. Let's go. It's the weekend. We need to take that time. So, that's not every day, but trying to find and giving time, giving permission, like you said, I won't check my email past a certain time, and letting the staff know that that's an expectation that I put on myself. And I would love for you to put that boundary, for yourself and for your family, because it's important. These are things that are going to be successful for all of us. And we need to make sure that this is just part of our campus culture. Instead of, staying up at the school until 10 p.m. grading papers, although I appreciate that and your hard work, that's not what's best for you. That's not what's best for your kids. That's not what's best for your family. So, making sure that we're modeling, and then also making sure that we're communicating to the staff as far as what the culture of this school is, top all the way down.
I think that's a constant tension that educators feel is that it so much simply, or the perception is so much simply has to get done. It has to get accomplished. It has to be done a certain way. So, something that school leaders can do is to be open to conversations about how that sense of overwhelm, that sense of the never ending tasks, the sense of marking late into the night. We as educators and as colleagues may not be able to solve that problem overnight, but we may, if we're open to having conversations about it, we may be able to help our colleagues, our reports, set more and more reasonable limits. And we can also help them to find ways together, not as the answer provider, but as sort of the co-inquirer. How might we as a staff, how might we as colleagues manage this a little bit better, whether it's through professional learning, through contact with a curriculum consultant, if that would be available or appropriate. It could also be, taking advantage of our Teach Better learning library as well. Blogs, seminars, all kinds of courses about how to do things just a little bit better, and maybe a little bit different can be a little bit better as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to know from everyone that's watching, in the comment section, if you would put down some success that you've had in regards to retaining teacher. What is that secret sauce that you feel you have implemented on your campus to really make sure that you're retaining your staff for a long time. I can think of several wonderful administrators in our mastermind where they talk about how it is such a small percentage of turnover every single year and just what they've built. And it's so uplifting to hear this culture and this community that's been constructed over time. And it does take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But Brad, I want to kind of shift our conversation to supporting new hires, because this is the time, this is summer where we're in interviews, we're trying to set up our staff. There's always someone that either retires or resigns late in July and August, where we may be scrambling to try and fill those positions. So I just want to talk about supporting your new hires once you get them into your building, into your campus. So the onboarding process, for you, Brad, is there like an orientation that you do? Is there some type of program that you've constructed for your new teachers? Because I want to know how you're getting them to acclimate into that school culture that you've already constructed.
I have the opportunity to do that as a new principal to the building, along with the new hires and the new reports. And so it begins with gathering information about what they might need, and it's not only the professional information, but as you stated, Josh, that it's the personal information. I think that our faculties of education are preparing, especially new teachers to be the best that they can. And we also know that the reality is that so much of the learning happens step by step once you are surrounded by kids and colleagues. And so I think that, part of the onboarding process has to be about creating a welcoming and an open sense of communication and belonging.
Yep.
It's an opportunity for existing faculty to get to know personally and professionally new reports. And it's also about connecting new hires and new teachers with resources and coaching and modeling from expert teachers around them that have easy access to their expertise. But also, as Marie is saying, it's more than about assigning or volunteering a colleague to have an eye out or keep a caring eye out for a new hire. Yep. It's about making sure that any mentor and mentee relationship is carefully crafted, and that there are willing participants on both sides. The mentoring can be formal, but it can also be informal in terms of the expertise that we have to share. I wonder what's coming to mind for you as far as the mentorship programs or successes that you've experienced, and maybe what setbacks or pitfalls we can be mindful of and try to avoid as school leaders.
Yeah, for sure. So for us, we actually built a program that was not only for first year teachers, like brand new teachers, but anyone brand new to our campus was into this orientation cadre, if you will. And then also, it didn't just last 1 year. It was actually a multiple year process of continuing to have that support. And we thought of it as a support team. So it wasn't just like, oh, you're assigned to one mentor that may be across the building that isn't teaching the same subject as you, but that may occur. But you also have someone that's within your team, subject matter, grade level. You had your team leader, you had your instructional coach, you had people from the district supporting you, obviously had the administration. So, we tried to put this team around folks and trying to make sure that we had touch points more than just your, once a month meeting that you came and, again, potentially just doing a sit and gas. We want to make sure that we had opportunities for them to be able to share out, things that were tough for them, to be able to question, because like you said earlier, curiosity, we want them to be curious about, new practices and, trying to fail and being okay with that learning experience of that tough thing. Because, I know for a new teacher, they look at an administrator and they're like, oh, you must have been successful in everything that you did. You never failed. No, that's not the case. I was, my first year was just a hot mess. I was just trying to survive. And, understanding that these new teachers are feeling like they're drowning for 12 months straight. And that's not going to go away for a good 2, 3, 4 years before they feel like they're comfortable in that role. And just constantly giving them support, allowing opportunities for them to question, get information, try new things. And then, of course, having that team of support. I think for you, Brad, I want to ask about like strategies for mentorship, because Maria kind of beat us there, right? She was already putting in the comment section about, how important that strategy is. So for mentorship, I know sometimes it's just easy with the busyness of the year of just being like going through the list, the staff list, and just kind of drawing the lines to each other of, okay, this person is going to be assigned to this person for various reasons. But I think that intentionality piece is huge for the success of a new teacher. So what are some strategies that you're using, Brad, to pair your new teachers with mentors that have experience on your campus?
Here in Ontario, we have a new teacher induction program, which mandates that new hires and new contract hires are matched with supports, whether they are supports provided by the district or supports provided at the school site. And so, as a school leader, you want to communicate enthusiasm and hope for that process. And you also want to, as you're administering that process, you want to keep in touch with both the mentor and the mentee on an ongoing basis to make sure that everyone is clear about their roles, responsibilities, and opportunities. You want to set norms along with them and along with the resources that you're given, from your district or your state. You want to set the norms in terms of ongoing communication, and it reminds you sort of the right to pass. If you're in a group conversation, you also have the right to indicate with impunity that maybe there is a mismatch that's happening, because we want, it could be a mismatch for the mentor or for the mentee. Sometimes these arrangements are mandated and they are sort of put together. In the best case scenarios, you have a cadre of trained and eager mentors who may or may not be in a particular area of educational expertise. It could be a generalist teacher, it could be a special education teacher, they could be an arts or a technical studies teacher. But ideally, you want to have a cadre of teachers that have that, as Brianne said, a sweet spot between professional expertise, but also empathy for the challenges and the stresses of being a new teacher. And finally, it's a willingness to be a co-learner. I think that the most successful mentoring relationships occur when the mentors themselves know that they have an opportunity to learn. I mean, in our classrooms, as much as we try to create networks of colleagues, continuing to teach in a classroom can be a very isolating experience, even for experienced teachers. And that's one reason that I promote taking on a pre-service or a student teacher from a faculty of education for our experienced educators, because in what you got the opportunity to have a willing learner who is watching and observing your practice, who is eager to soak up your expertise, but also you have someone with whom you can share the work and you can share the stresses and struggles yourself, and you have someone with whom you can articulate why you do what you do. And that's something that we and someone you can articulate why you wish you hadn't done it that way and what you're learning through the process. So there's learning to be had on both sides of both the mentor and mentee relationship. Ideally, it's one where the administrator is intimately involved with monitoring and supporting those conversations, up to and including helping out with some resolution if there is a conflict, if it appears to be a mismatch.
Yeah, I think having those, we talked about earlier, of those touch points, right? Of making sure that you're checking in and making sure the new teachers progressing, they're understanding, the responsibilities, if they have any questions, concerns, whatnot. And then, of course, being intentional with selecting someone that's going to be the best for the learning aspect of things. I know it's easy to just say, okay, they teach the same subject, they're in the same grade level, whatnot, and match them up that way. But I think personalities have a big piece to that too, and how they're going to gel and being intentional about that relationship.
Well, you talk about the necessity of retention, and the mentoring and the mentoring relationship and opportunities, especially for teachers in their first 5 years, that can be a make or break proposition for retaining educators longer into the profession. And it's also essential in terms of culture in making sure that our colleagues know that networking and mutual support opportunities are available, regardless of what school they walk into. I mean, let's face it, we become intimately involved and connected with a particular building, a particular campus. But most of us are employees of school districts where there may be a variety of places that we are either called to work or we choose to work. What we want to do is make sure that each and every campus in our districts, and we as school leaders are intimately connected with this, is a place where there is that warm welcome and there is that commitment to seeking to understand the needs of our educators, especially our educators within the first 5 years, seeking to understand their needs and seeking to understand how we can best help them move forward. So, I mean, it is both a professional endeavor, but it's an intimately personal endeavor, Josh. As you and I well know, it's matching the approach with what the individual needs at that time, and then being careful to craft the next steps that are both engaging and that leverage high expectations, but also not overwhelming.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Brad. Our secondary director always talked about the fact that when you're hiring someone, and then of course once they're on your campus and you're building into them, that they're not a campus employee, they're a district employee. And as you know, there's so many people that transfer to different campuses, different levels, and then also get promoted. So, just because you start, I started as an art teacher. That's not where I ended at the district level. I mean, I rose up. And so, we have to make sure that we understand that, yes, they may be a first year teacher, but that's not the end point for them. We're building into them, and they're probably going to be somewhere else within our district. And so we need to make sure that we're fostering their love of teaching, and then also, making sure that they understand all of the many aspects that go with that role. And I mean, the statistics are staggering as far as the longevity of teachers. It's getting smaller and smaller every year. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything possible as a school leader, as an administrator, to support our new teachers, and not just the first month, not the first 3 months, not the first year even. We need to go beyond that and make sure that our programs are there to, be that safety net, if you will, for them when they fall, to allow them to, have a safe space to work through all the many difficult things that they have to learn.
100%. I think that surviving the pandemic has revealed to folks in all walks of life and in all different kinds of job sectors that, the value that we bring to each and every interaction can be highly valued and also fairly compensated in other sectors. And so, all that one thing I think is essential as we kicked off our session today is helping each and every educator understand the value that they bring to the community. And sometimes that could mean, in terms of retention, that could mean, as a school leader, helping your colleague be aware of opportunities outside of your campus, but within the district. They're shifting. They can shift their expertise if it's a mismatch or not a good fit. If it's become too overwhelming or too dispiriting, let's shift your expertise to another campus. Let's shift your expertise to another opportunity. A colleague once told me, millions of kids, one you. I mean, kids and families and caregivers, they need educators in all spaces. Maybe a different space is the one that you need to restore your confidence and maybe to restore your sense of purpose. And I love what you said too, Josh, about being that safe landing space. I mean, our school offices need to be safe places where colleagues can be vulnerable, where they can reveal their fears, where they can be honest about their missteps. They can be, coached and supported. We want to avoid that sense that we're the gotcha people, or I told you so people, or if you'd done it that way, we wouldn't be in the situation. We, seek to understand. We seek to understand people's experiences. Maybe together we can find that next just right place for our colleagues to retain them into the education.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I got to learn that firsthand early in my career of, and that's why I built those relationship walks, was because once I started to show that I really cared about them as human beings and not just about their output in the job, then they would come in and tell on themselves of, oh, you know what, I screwed up. I did this. I said this to a parent, or I did this with a kid. What should I do? And it was more of like a problem solving situation at that point, because they knew I wasn't going to put them on blast. I wasn't there to fire them or write them up and get rid of them. That wasn't the idea. It was to, like you said, get better every day. And so they were able to admit in a safe space that this is what's going on. And then also on top of that, of sharing the stresses and things that were going on in their own personal life, So, my spouse just lost their job, or, I'm going through a really nasty divorce right now. And half the time I didn't even know that was even going on in their life. They put on the mask. They were a trooper and kept going and were great with the kids and sharing the instruction. And then, they would come in, shut the door and just, share a ton of stresses that are going on in their lives, and then we could then work together and collaborate of like, what can we do to get you through this tough time? So those conversations don't happen unless you build those relationships and they understand that you truly value them as human beings, and that you're there to make sure that, yes, they're wonderful in the classroom, they're wonderful at their job as a teacher, but that you're also there to support them in the other aspects of their life.
Well, education is a profoundly human endeavor. And when I think about when I was a classroom educator, certainly I had long range plans, I had unit plans, I had lesson plans, I had resources. But the real gift of education is knowing how to respond in moment to moment to the intimate and emerging needs of the kids in front of you and around you. And I think that's where the real gift of school leadership is too, Josh, is we have our strategic plans, we have our operational plans, we have our school goals, we have our data, but it's that responsiveness in terms of attraction and retention.
Yep.
Educators, I think, are craving, and they deserve that responsiveness and that attentiveness on the part of the school leaders to be able to, yes, know the mission, know the path, but also to be able to respond moment to moment to the needs of the adults that are beside and around us on any given day. And when we demonstrate that we are attentive and that we are responsive, the word gets out. The word gets out to colleagues who may feel they've been burned in the past, or may feel misunderstood or unheard, or may feel, that their concerns are being sloughed off. I mean, if we can demonstrate that we are paying attention and that we are responsive, and we can put, I guess we can shift our focus from the educational endeavors to the human endeavor of being in a community, being surrounded by kids and adults who are bringing their best, and sometimes their best is not what we'd like to see. Again,
it's just showing up,
right? Exactly. They're here with all of their. It's a mess. It's a beautiful mess. And so if we as school leaders are attentive to that mess around us, and that we are paying attention, and we demonstrate through individual conversations or through circling back, or just planting the seeds that we're available and that we want to help, it's crucial to both attracting and retaining the valuable educators that we have.
Yeah. Brad, I can't believe it. We have like less than 15 minutes. So I want to shift over to the last component of our conversation today, which is attracting new teachers. We've talked about retaining, which I want to really be intentional with saying and communicating to everybody that we started with that on purpose. We started with retaining our teachers because that is the most important aspect. If anyone's gone through the hiring process, it is a time suck. It takes an immense amount of energy to find new people that are going to fit into the needs of your campus. And so it is very important that you're feeding into the folks that you have currently. And I think it should be in the forefront of our mind all the time that we want to keep the people that are in our building. So with that being said, we've talked about retaining folks. We've talked about, once we have our new hires, being able to support them as administrators. But now I want to shift over to attracting new teachers. So if someone's going through that process right now, they're looking to fill a position, it's summertime, we know this is the time for folks to be hiring. What are some innovative things that you've done, Brad, to really try to attract or recruit candidates to come to your campus and fill those positions?
One strategy that I found really both practical, but also foundational in terms of building relationships is developing relationships with occasional, or I call guest teachers, substitute teachers. And so as we have these individuals coming into our school buildings, that's one thing that the school leader can do with great intention, is to build those relationships. Often occasional teachers, guest teachers, substitute teachers may feel that they're just kind of a ship through the night, kind of wandering in from school building to school building without a sense of community, without a sense that, hey, you're valued, you're needed, you're appreciated. So, if we are drawing contract or longer term teachers and educators from that pool of supply teachers, of substitute teachers, let's invest in those relationships so that they know, first of all, because they have a choice where they choose to work each and every day. If you have like a central deployment system in your district, many of these guest teachers can decide where they choose to work. Why not make it, what are we doing to make your school an easy choice? Yeah, this is a school where I feel welcome. I'm known by name. I'm recognized. There's coffee on the staff room. The kids and the educators are coached about, treating guest teachers like a guest in your space, extra support, extra consideration. I know how to reach help quickly if I need it. I know who to go to for a question. If we can make our spaces welcoming and inviting for those guest teachers to make it an easy yes when they see a vacancy in the morning at your school, first of all, that fills that need for that educator in front of those kids on any given day. And then you're building a relationship with them about, what lights you up about being an educator, and how can I make this space, how can we work together to make this space one that helps you look forward to coming. So that's one strategy in terms of, leveraging our relationships with our guest teaching staff into hiring them for longer term assignments. What's coming up for you in terms of, you've got a vacancy to fill, or maybe you're doing block hiring for a new school, and the applicant pool appears to be small. Like, what's within your capacity, Josh, to flip that script and to get the right people in front of you for the right reasons?
Yeah, I think, what was coming to mind was when you were talking about culture and we're talking about, what we're doing for our retaining our staff. I think that goes along with them actually being the advocates to get new folks into your building. I can think of countless times of people, advertising the fact, oh, I love the school I'm at,
Mhm.
you should come and fill, X, Y, and Z position. And so, we were getting people from neighboring districts, people from the state, we were getting people from neighboring states that were coming just to come to our district. And that says a lot beyond just our campus, but our district too. But I think the people, when you build that culture and you build a space where people want to come every single day, they're not quiet about that. They tell everybody in the world that, this is a place that I want to be, and this is where others should come. So we found a lot of candidates that way of filling interview slots because they knew another teacher that they may have worked with before, or it was someone that they knew, were good friends with. The other piece too was like finding opportunities for colleges to be in partnership with us. So we would have student teachers not only in our building, but we also had observers. So students that needed to fill hours. We partnered with our teaching programs in our high schools for kids to come and be able to tutor and whatnot. So there are opportunities for them to come back. So trying to find young folks to come into our building to experience the culture that we had constructed, for them to long to be in that space. And so when it was time for them to look for a job, we would get emails of, hey, I had this opportunity to shadow or observe or student teach. I would love the opportunity to be at this campus. And so we filled a lot of positions where, teachers had an opportunity to start their career in the university on our campus, to then be a part of our staff moving forward.
I think that the interview process itself, Josh, is also a huge opportunity for us to leverage and attract those candidates. And what I try to do is create a very humane space, especially, the pandemic shifted a lot of our face-to-face interviews to Zoom or to Google Meet interviews. And let's face it, interviewing for a job that you care about is stressful enough. And so that's one of the things that I try to name as an interviewer. This opportunity, it may be stressful for you. We're here for you anyway. This interview is important to you. It's important to us. We're here for you as much as you believe that you're here for us. So let's be intentional about creating a space, whether it's face-to-face or whether it's virtual. This space is for you to speak authentically about what lights you up about education. It's a space where you can speak authentically about what you are continuing to learn and leverage to do better, especially as a novice educator. And it's a space, above all, where we want to get to know the heart of you. I mean, a lot of applicants show up with scripted answers to questions, and they've been coached about, what the major talking points or what the major, lingo you need to leverage. And I try to let candidates know that's all well and good, but we really want to leave this interview knowing more about you as an educator and making sure that you have asked us, or that we've been giving you enough information about our campus, about our district, that you feel it's a good fit for you as well as a good fit for us. And talk about attraction. I mean, if you leave candidates leaving your interview with that sense that not only in that space was I respected, valued, and supported in a stressful situation, I think that also translates to their perception of how you are as a school leader and what kind of a culture that you can anticipate. Again, a culture of honoring where people are, bringing their emotion and their whatever it is into the space, and that they're going to be supported throughout it. It's going to be safe and supportive. So that's hopefully a practical takeaway for some of our school leaders watching, is to do all you can to make those interview spaces humane. Yes, you've got to do this, that, and the other, but make it humane, recognizing that again, it's a human endeavor to prepare for, and then to be part of a job interview that's important to you.
Yeah. Well, Brad, there's only a couple minutes left, and I want to talk about just some calls to action. So
Beautiful.
obviously I want to invite them to the admin mastermind. So, will you just share a little bit about that program and what that free opportunity is?
Absolutely. It's free. It's fun. And our administrators that are participating, whether it's weekly or as often as they can, I think derive tremendous value from the interaction. I mean, the opportunity not only to be vulnerable with and to share strategies around problems of practice with fellow colleagues from all over the world, but also intentional focus on the cycles of the school year. And so practical support for just what we're talking about now: hiring, attracting, and retaining. Yep. Developing school culture, coordinating and facilitating effective staff meetings, what to do, when things when things aren't going as well as you can, focus on campus mental health and well-being, like all of these practical things, as well as an opportunity to bat around and do some problem solving strategies. It's Tuesday mornings, 9:00 Eastern. And school leaders, we would really encourage you to join us. You just have to zip over to teachbetter.com/mastermind, share your personal information, how we can reach you. Joshua will reach out, and we'll make sure that you're connected with our weekly Zoom link.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to see everybody on Tuesday. It's such a powerful conversation, and it's so uplifting to hear strategies from other administrators across the country, really, or across the world, since we have multiple folks in different countries representing the admin mastermind. So, Brad, is there anything that you would like our administrators or viewers to do moving forward in regards to retaining and attracting staff?
Josh, I'd say I would encourage all of our school leaders to reflect on what lights you up about being an educator. And then once you're clear on that, then whether it's an in-school or an out-of-school opportunity, speaking as positively, but also as vulnerably as you can about life as an educator, with all of its gifts and all of its setbacks, with all of its rewards and all of its risks, but coming back to a foundation of what lights you up as a school leader, what gets you out of bed in the morning, whether it's that cup of coffee or whether it's that interaction with kids, whatever it lights you up about your role, get comfortable with sharing it. And then hopefully by extension, that gets others in your space comfortable with sharing what lights them up. And you can leverage that information to make it, make our schools a place where both adults and kids look forward to coming, even for a small reason, and hopefully leave feeling glad they came.
Awesome. Well, Brad, it has been a pleasure to be live with you, buddy. And like I said, it's awesome to see you every Tuesday morning in Admin Mastermind. I encourage everyone, if you want a community, if you want support, this is a fantastic way to get that community that you're looking for. So, Brad, I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, if for our viewers, if you need support in any way, please reach out to Brad or myself, anyone from the team. We're here to support you every day throughout the year. It doesn't matter. I know it's summertime. If you want something in regards to retaining staff or attracting teachers and getting strategies with that, please reach out. And with that, Brad, I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too, Josh. And thanks to everyone for joining us and for joining us for the Admin Summer Series. And as Josh said, we're only a message away. We would love to connect.